Hey there, my name is Dan Gandy, team leader, principal broker of the Operative Group, and owner of EugeneRealEstate.com. And today we're going to talk about Lane County and septic systems, whether it's replacement or it's inspections. We're going to provide you a jam-packed informational video that can give you the right resources, the hyperlinks, and the process that is going to help you either replace your septic or work on your septic with trusted referrals that we've used on our own projects. Now, why this is relevant to investing in Oregon is a lot of investors are always looking at properties that are rural, which bring up well and septic systems, as well as homeowners that we work with on a daily basis that are getting septic systems inspected. We've had about 6 or 7 real estate transactions out of 100 plus that had needed a full septic replacement during the transaction. So I wanted to go over this step by step, provide you the guide with a link below. But before we dive into this, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can follow more information from us at EugeneRealEstate.com and the Operative Group. All right, let's dig into it. In Lane County, first disclaimer, I am not a licensed septic installer or technician or inspector or engineer. Please reach out to the appropriate people. You're going to see a disclaimer at the bottom of this guide. This is for informational purposes only, and by using this information, you agree to hold us harmless because there's a lot of information that changes on a regular basis. I've done my best to compile all the resources and use this within our rural property division at the Operative Group to help people make better decisions when it comes to septic systems. Now, that being said, here's the step-by-step process when doing a replacement. Now, doing a new system is going to be slightly different from this, and we deal with a lot of developers and land, so you're going to want to talk to the relevant same people at the wastewater division at the county to be able to go through and cross-reference what this guide says for new septic and systems, but it should be relevant, very similar. Okay, let's dive into it. Step-by-step process. There's a preliminary check and land use approval. And what happens here, they're going to confirm zoning. They're going to ensure the property is eligible for a septic system replacement. They're going to check setbacks, easements, floodplain, slope, and if required, update planning clearances or get land use planning approvals. It's a little complex. You may need an engineer involved, or you may need a licensed septic installer to get through this process. Land management division, planning, sanitation is going to be who you work with, and a document or information needed. You may need a property survey or a tax lot map, zoning info, or any prior septic records. A lot of times you can look these up, or the septic company can help you with that. Next, there's going to be a site evaluation. A county sanitarian or on-site agent inspects the soil, and you're going to be able to have to go through the test pit process, which I've included below. I won't go into too deep, but these test pits are going to look for any standing water, water absorption, and they're going to look at the slope, area sizing, and replacement area to make sure the space reserved for future, if needed, expansion, replacement is adequate. The depth to the water table and all of the relevant details are going to be looked at through this site evaluation. Lane County Environmental Health Subsurface Sanitation Program is who handles it, and the completed site evaluation test pits, usually at least 2, soil profile info, property layout, mapping of the existing septic tank and components are all going to be involved in this step. And I want to tell you guys, typically what I'm seeing in terms of quotes for test pits is anywhere between $2,000 and $4,000, depending on where it is, to have the septic company come out and do those test pits for you. I get a question a lot from homeowners is, can we do the test pits ourselves? Exercise caution, make sure you know what you're doing before you get into that process. Next, the permitting application. After a site evaluation is approved, submit the septic system permit, construction installation permit, and sometimes building permit if structure is tied in. Also apply for electrical permits if equipment requires power. Who's involved is subsurface sanitation program and building program, planning, land management. The permit application forms, site plan, layout of new septic replacement, repair, tank fields, some specifications, and fees must include the replacement area. Permitting application sometimes is kind of confusing in a real estate transaction because you have a seller that might get the process started, and is the lender allowing the septic to be done after closing as an escrow holdback? So getting an invoice or estimate, having 150% of that held back, and then the septic system being installed at a future date, maybe having a reappraisal check-in inspection. But there's a lot of process that's happening between who is actually pulling this permit and paying for the fees, and then the buyer is receiving the new septic system if you're dealing with a real estate transaction. Next, there's a review and approval. The county reviews the plan, site evaluation, confirms the replacement design meets all health, setback, and state rules, and if all okay, they issue the permits. Lane County on-site wastewater and possibly state DEQ oversight, if relevant, is involved. Any requested corrections, if test pits were shallow, setbacks not met, there's going to be a payment of fees during this process. So review and approval is the most important so that we can figure out the prescription of what type of septic system is going to be installed, as well as what permits are going to be required, and is the state and county involved, or is it just the county? Your septic installation contractor should be handling majority of this if you're hiring it out. Now, the installation and construction step process is using a licensed installer or a homeowner, depending on, like I said, using caution and understanding what you do. We see a lot of contractors, excavation contractors that may have the experience doing this, and that might be totally okay. But time and time again, I've seen septic systems that were put in by family members and not done correctly, and then having to be completely pulled out or replaced or modified based upon new rules and updating of laws. So, who's involved? Installer, homeowner, county inspector. Typically, you're going to see some graduated payment structure, a deposit, and then maybe 50% due halfway through, or the remaining 50% at completion of the project. But they're going to be using approved materials, following approved drawings, maintaining separation distances, and using what has been specified in that permit. Next, there's going to be an inspection done. What we call as-built. I've had a couple investors basically replace the tank or the distribution box without getting permits and then asking for forgiveness later. I do not suggest it. But as-built situation, you're going to want to be able to provide drawings and everything and bring it back to them so that you can have an inspection done. Different counties have different rules, and just want to say that's not a good idea. In this stage, they're going to pre-cover inspection. They're going to do a pre-cover inspection before burying the components. Tank, field, and pipes is often required. Final inspection after everything is installed. County must sign off. This means you have a permitted complete septic inspection from that stage. County inspectors are involved. As-built plans, materials list, reports of installation, especially if changes occurred. The final approval and certification is once the inspection passes, county issues a certificate of satisfactory completion. Then the system may go into use. Who's involved? Subsurface sanitation, county building department, documentation of the completed work, and any required warranty or maintenance instructions are going to be provided to the homeowner or seller, who's going to provide that to the buyer. Now, key rules and standards to know. Lane County follows the Oregon Administrative Rules, the OAR, Chapter 340, Division 71 for on-site wastewater systems. There's a link I provided so you want more information. Replacement systems must have a replacement area space reserved that meets OAR standards. The county must approve both initial and replacement areas. Included a link to that. Test pits are required, usually at least 2 for soil evaluation. If a repair is minor, not the whole drain field, fewer requirements may apply. A lot of times when we're doing inspections, we see hydrojetting needed to be done to the drain field, or we see a distribution box that has been damaged, or we see baffles, inlet, outlet baffles that need to be replaced. So there are minor things that might be able to get replaced that doesn't require a full system replacement or install. So that's sometimes what you're wanting to always have done as an inspection during a real estate sale or a transfer of property. Materials and installer must be county, state licensing and specification standards. DEQ is what we typically say if we're doing a DEQ inspection in a real estate transaction. And permits may require clearances from planning and possibly other land use entitlements if the location is sensitive. Floodplain, high slope, etc. Typical timeline is what I try to caution people. It's not a simple way of doing things. Now, when we see septic systems on level lots within the city, typically those move pretty quickly, 3 to 6 weeks until the installation is started to be scheduled and done. But when we get out into rural areas and some of those setbacks and issues come up, that's where we see delays. Preliminary checks and site evaluation is anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, just depending on if you hired it out to a septic company and how backed up their schedule is. Permit review and approval is 1 to 3 weeks. If it complete and meets code, delays if revisions are needed. And then construction and inspections could be just based upon the installer's schedule. And it depends on the size of the system, how much excavation is needed, and did you pay their deposit? I've seen that a delay as well. Final sign off after successful inspection, maybe a few days to get documentation or get something scheduled for the next week for somebody to come out. Now, common issues and pain points. These are super important. Test pits revealing unsuitable soil or high groundwater. This is going to force you to use an alternative or more complex system design. I'll give you some ballparks. Anytime that has happened to me, we're looking at anywhere between $30,000 and $45,000 for a septic system. I know that's a large range, but there's so many variables that are going to depend on that. Some of the cheaper systems where there are not issues, we're looking anywhere between $15,000 and $25,000. I know that's a big range, but on average, it's been about $18,000 to $24,000 for a septic system. And if it's just a tank, we're looking at anywhere between $7,500 and $12,000 just for the tank. Leach field replacement is about the same exact price. So I always try to tell everybody ballpark $20,000 to $25,000 at a minimum. If there's a very advanced system that is prescribed, then we're looking $30K plus. Now, insufficient replacement area. Some properties lack the space to meet code and setbacks. I just looked at a property on the coast. There was a small septic system, and we were looking to build an ADU on top of the house. And that was going to require insufficient replacement area because we needed to increase the capacity of the tank. Also, delays due to incomplete applications. This has happened to us as well. Missing site plan, missing test pin info, unclear mapping. You're going to submit it. They're going to kick it back. You're going to have to redo and submit with the information they're needing. Also, confusion of whether repairs are minor or major under county or DEQ definitions. A lot of times we see inspectors or septic companies say, hey, there's just a few things that need to be done. And then it turns into a larger issue as they unravel that problem. Needing other permits or planning clearances or land use compatibility, which adds time and cost. So pretty straightforward and common sense, but I like to tell everybody that's why you hire professionals to help you with this process. I also included this really standard Lane County replacement septic checklist. As I said, you could just use this as a general guide for information, but I won't have to go through all of it. It just provides you some good framework to look through. Also, common pitfalls and avoid these. Submitting an application without a clear replacement area causes denial. Not providing accurate setback distances, covering the system before an inspection forces a redig. This has actually happened to me. Letting permits expire. They're only valid for a limited time. I'm selling some lots right now. They already had septic approval. When they do expire is something that we're going to have to disclose to a potential buyer and renew those as part of the process. So all of that information in that checklist just gives you a good framework. Like I said, do your own due diligence. Next, I included for Lane County all of the different website areas that are going to help you, from septic permits, forms and handouts, setback information, septic FAQs, test pit information, and also the appeal process. Like I said, if you hire an installer, they're going to help you through this process, but this is all good information. Next, like I promised, I have trusted referrals. These are people who we refer to our clients and have had success with both in installation, inspection, and repair and pumping. We like to use SOS Septic. They've done probably the majority of ours over the last 2 years. Also, we've used Russell Excavation and Septic Pros. They've also done a great job in full replacement and repairs. Also, I put Hidden Gem Septic out of the Cottage Grove area. They're a good company that we refer people to. There are also other companies I didn't list on here. Could be for several reasons. It may have just been omitted because I wanted to put 3 people on here. So just because somebody's not on here doesn't mean they don't do a great job, or doesn't mean we haven't used them in the past. I just like to use 3 companies because it's easy. Now, if you need a septic inspection, a part of a real estate sale, or you're having issues and you want somebody to come out and do a full inspection, these are the steps, or this is the information you need for an Oregon full DEQ inspection. It's going to include Septic Smart evaluations. There's a standardized form for all septic inspections that everyone uses, and that septic inspection form is what you're going to look through. It's going to have a layout design of what they found. If they've done any drain field mapping, they're going to put that on there. And at the end of the day, there's a million questions it's going to ask, and then if you have trouble interpreting that, the company is required to tell you what is wrong. I've had a lot of people just send the septic inspection and it has issues on it, and then they don't even say anything. That's why we tend to use people that we trust. I'm not going to go through all of these things because this video would be like 35 minutes long, but I'm going to include this link so you can read through all of the information regarding septic inspections. Different counties, different areas. We do have septic inspectors in Lynn, Lane, Douglas County for your usage. So just reach out to us. How to find licensed inspectors or installers. There's also a website that has every licensed smart septic inspector list. There's also a DEQ sewage disposal service business license search. So if somebody comes out to you or you get a mailer, you want to make sure that they're licensed, there's a link there. And as always, this is just another amazing resource we're providing from the operative group. And as I said before, there's a disclaimer here about terms of use. This is for informational purposes only, but please don't copy this and use this in your own marketing if you're another real estate agent. We spent a lot of time putting together this guide, and this is essentially what's going to help guide our clients and potential customers or anybody out there in the county that needs help. But always reach out to the county. Always hire a licensed septic installer to help you. Don't take my word for it. This information is subject to change, and we want to make sure that you get the most relevant information. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Comment below. Was this helpful? We thank you again from investing in Oregon.